it's Becky, and of course it's the beginning of 2025, so we're going to be talking about books I'm most anticipating in 2025. Now, for me, I'm a big fantasy and sci-fi reader, so most of the books on this are probably going to be fantasy, but there's so many books coming out this year, like every month, so there's just too much to read and too little time to read it in. But here are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 books that I'm most excited for this year. So first up is, of course, The Devils by Joe Abercrombie. So I love Joe Abercrombie's writing, and I've been really excited as I've heard more and more about this book coming out in, I believe, May. Yes, May. The book promises to be kind of a gritty, character-driven story again, yet from Joe Abercrombie, of course it will be. It's got some visceral storytelling, and it's also linked quite closely to kind of religion and monks, I think, as well. So it kind of, to me, it kind of reminds me of some of Mark Lawrence's books as well, so I'm extra excited for this one. And of course it's going to have some wit and dark humour in there too, so I'm quite looking forward to it. And let me quickly read the blurb. Holy work sometimes requires unholy deeds. Brother Diaz has been summoned to the sacred city, where he is certain a commendation and a grand holy assignment awaits him. But his new flock is made up of unrepentant murderers, practitioners of ghastly magic, and outright monsters. The mission he is tasked with will require bloody measures from them all in order to achieve its righteous ends. Elves lurk at our borders and a hunger for our flesh, while greedy princes care for nothing but their own ambitions and comfort. With a hellish journey before him, it's a good thing Brother Diaz has the devils on his side. The next book I'm really excited for is A Sea of Unspoken Things by Adrienne Young. I love Adrienne Young's writing. I've read most of her other books and I've adored them, so I'm really excited for yet another book from her. So let's go through the blurb first. The only thing James and Johnny Golden have ever had is each other. For as long as she can remember, James's deep connection with her twin brother Johnny has gone beyond intuition. She can feel what he feels. So when Johnny is killed in a tragic accident, James knows before the phone even rings that her brother is gone and that she's alone, truly alone for the first time in her life. So when James arrives in the rural town of Hawthorne, California to settle her brother's affairs, she's forced to rehash the ominous past she and Johnny shared and finally face Micah, the only person who knows about it. He's also the only man she's ever loved. So this is going to be another character-driven story. Adrienne Young's really great at putting romantic pairings together, as well as writing about family and found family. So I'm really looking forward to see how James kind of uncovers the mysteries and secrets that happen in this story, whilst showing the relationship she has with Johnny before he died and Micah, as we see hopefully the past and the present and how that goes forward. Next we have Emily Wilde's Compendium of Lost Tales by Heather Fawcett. So I've already read the first 2 books, Encyclopedia of Fairies and Map of the Other Lands, I believe are the names off the top of my head, and I adored Emily Wilde. I love the characters and I love the kind of subtle inclusion of different fae throughout each of the stories. So of course I'm going to enjoy the next one. I'm not going to read the blurb for this one as it is a sequel. I don't want to ruin it for anyone who hasn't read the first couple of books. But the kind of TLDR is Emily Wilde is a dryadologist and studies fae, and she's documented hundreds in the encyclopedia in the first book. And she's going to start embarking on another dangerous project to find out more about these creatures in her world. There's a cast of characters along with her, including her dog Shadow, who I love. But the follow-up really does kind of have that cozy fantasy vibe. I really enjoyed the, I guess, low stakes. Even though they weren't very low stakes, there definitely could have been bad things happening. I found the actual reading of both the previous books to be quite casual reading, and I enjoyed the comfort and the characters that came with each of them. Next is The Maiden and Her Monster by Maddie Martinez. First, I'm going to go through the blurb. I don't know much about this, but I read the blurb and I was instantly taken in. When a young woman is forced to venture into a cursed forest to capture the monster hunting the girls of her village, she discovers a disgraced golem ready to confess, but only if she agrees to help fulfill an ancient promise first. A bargain that unravels a much more dangerous threat to her people and forces her to face growing feelings for the very creature she was taught to fear. Now, I haven't read many books with golems in it. I have read a couple, which I've really enjoyed, so seeing that kind of creature in this book is what instantly drew me to it, but also kind of the mystery of what was happening, and also the ancient promise, bargain, etc., as well as possibly a romance or something with the golem. I believe the unnamed main character might be a really good heroine for the story, and I'm quite excited to see what this one's about. Unfortunately, this is going to be 9th of September, so it's quite far off, but it's one I'm definitely looking out for. The next book I'm looking forward to is Shroud by Adrian Tchaikovsky. I'll be honest, I don't know much about this book, but it's by Adrian Tchaikovsky, and I've loved all of the books I've read from him before. He's almost an auto-buy author for me. First, the blurb. They looked into the darkness, and the darkness looked back. New planets are fair game to asset strippers and interplanetary opportunists, and a commercial mission to a distant star system discovers a moon that is pitch black, but alive with radioactivity. Its high gravity, high pressure, zero oxygen environment is against human life, but ripe for exploitation. They named it Shroud. Under no circumstances should a human end up on Shroud's inhospitable surface, except a catastrophic accident sees Junior Sealander and Mai stay Adrienne doing just that. Forced to stage an emergency landing in a small, barely inadequate vehicle, they are unable to contact their ship and are running out of time. What follows is a grueling journey across land, sea, and air. During this time, Junior and Mai begin to understand Shroud's dominant species. It also begins to understand them. If they escape Shroud, they'll face a crew only interested in profiteering from this extraordinary world. They'll somehow have to explain the impossible and translate the incredible. That is, if they make it back at all. Whether it's fantasy or sci-fi, Tchaikovsky's works always worked really well. There's huge world building just from this blurb alone, and I'm so excited to figure out what's happening on Shroud and what is so bad and possibly good about it. He really has thought-provoking narratives throughout all of his stories, but I'm really excited to see this one. The main characters seem like they're going to go through like a really grueling time of it, and I'm excited to read that. And it's one of the only sci-fis on my list this year, but it's just one of those ones that I'm just really intrigued by the premise. Next up we have Holy Terrors by Margaret Owen. So, as a surprise to no one, as Little Thieves is one of my favourite books, the next book in the series is definitely on my list. Similar to Emily Wilde, I'm not going to go through the blurb for this one just in case it spoils the first two books. But this is the third and I believe final book in this series as we follow Vanya. It's meant to be like a dark fantasy but quite humorous, playing off a lot of myth and folklore. Our characters are very morally grey. Vanya's not a good person all the time, often thieving and kidnapping and fighting a lot, but we love both Vanya and Emmerich in the books as well as all the other cast of characters, and I'm excited to see what they're up to this time. And then last but not least, I'm looking forward to The Book That Held Her Heart by Mark Lawrence. Again, this is a third of a trilogy, I believe, starting with The Book That Wouldn't Burn. And this is about a mysterious library which has kind of countless halls. You can't always get into them, and there's librarians and there's kind of people attacking the city, and yeah, I've already read the first two books and I'm really excited to read the final book and find out what's going to happen to these characters that I've learnt to love. It's kind of got this really dark fantasy edge. Something's definitely wrong in the library, but we don't quite know what's happening, and there's a lot of emotion. Our characters really bring their backstory and their present family relationships and friendships and each other to the world. And I'm fully expecting something to go wrong, as it's a final in a trilogy from Mark Lawrence, and he loves to do that to us. So yeah, those are my 7 most anticipated reads for the year. 2025 is shaping up to be a really great fantasy year. There's so many books, especially sequels, coming out, and I'm excited to see all of the kind of end of a series as well as debuts coming out this year. Are there any books on your list that I should be adding to my TBR, and which one are you reading first this year? Like, what are you actually going to be reading in January? Let me know, and I will see you again in the next one.